Many fires broke out across the city, which were seriously exacerbated later on when people tried to cook breakfast. You wouldn't think that would be incredibly dangerous, but it was. When the chimneys and the stoves were damaged and people didn't realize that, cooking breakfast literally started a number of fires. In fact, the worst of the fires literally became known as the ham and eggs fire. Now, so all these fires began merging together and merging together and merging together until eventually they form something so huge that it becomes a firestorm, and it starts generating its own weather. General Funston summoned his troops into the city, about 1,700 in all, and he has the following description of what happened next. Market Street was full of excited, anxious people, watching the progress of the various fires now being merged into one great conflagration. A few moments before 7 o'clock, there arrived the first detachment of regular troops, the men of the Engineer Corps at Fort Mason. They were greeted with evident will by the crowd and made a fine impression with their full cartridge belts and fixed bayonets. They had marched from Fort Mason to the Hall of Justice, where they had been reported to the Chief of Police, and were now being distributed along Market Street, 2 to each block, with instructions to shoot instantly any person caught looting or committing any serious misdemeanor. Their presence had an instantly reassuring effect on all awe-inspired persons. In the meantime, dynamite had been obtained, and then began the series of terrific explosions that was to shake the city for the next few days. The amount of dynamite available in the early hours of the day was too small to accomplish much, but a tug was obtained, and a number of trips made to the works of the California Powder Company at Pinole, the tug returning each time laden with explosives. I doubt if anyone will ever know the amount of dynamite and gun cotton used in blowing up buildings, but it must have been tremendous, as there were times when the explosions were so continuous as to resemble a bombardment. It is useless to attempt to go into a detailed account of the events of that night of horrors. 4 square miles of the city were on fire. The night was as light as day, and the roar of the conflagration, the crash of falling walls, and the continuous explosions made a pandemonium simply indescribable. During the memorable 18th and 19th, every hotel and bank, every large store, and nearly every storeroom and wareroom in the city had been destroyed. 300,000 people were homeless, and thousands more were left without the means of livelihood. 3 interesting stories that broke out, as it were, at this time included the Audiford Building. If you see it on the Embarcadero near Market Street, near the ferry building, it looks incredibly out of place. It's in a mansard style in a district that was, aside from the ferry building, completely obliterated in 1906. As to how that one building survived, it's close enough to the water for the fireboats to be able to reach it. And they did intend to blow it up to make a fire break, along with a line of other buildings. But the head of the saloon wisely offered 2 quarts of whiskey apiece and a full fire cart full of wine bottles to not blow up the building. When the owner of the building was walking through the wreckage of the city and saw that his building was still standing, he was stunned. At the Palace Hotel, the men who built it, men called Ralston, had future-proofed it in every way he conceivably could. He wanted it to be earthquake-proof. It wasn't, but in order to help in that regard, the exterior walls of the hotel were 2 feet thick and reinforced by iron bands. Furthermore, the hotel had a massive system of standing pipes, hydrants, throughout, which were fed in turn, just in case the hotel ever got severed from the water supply, by a 630,000-gallon cistern beneath the hotel, and further water tanks on the roof containing 130,000 gallons of water. In short, it was supposed to be able to withstand a lot. And maybe it would have saved the hotel. But when the fire was roaring down Market Street and the firemen had no water, Palace Hotel still had water, and they tapped into the cistern to try to save the surrounding buildings and, in turn, the Palace Hotel. But eventually, the cisterns ran dry, and then the building burned. Meanwhile, at the Mark Hopkins Art Institute, formerly the Mark Hopkins Mansion, students from the University of California attempted to save the art collection, literally cutting paintings out of their frames, and brought as many as they could across the street to the Flood Mansion, which was made of stone and thought to be safer, and placed them into its stone basement. This did not work, by the way. They also took the furnishings and the books out of the Mark Hopkins Mansion and put them on the lawn of the Flood Mansion across the way. But a building that marvelously Gothic and sinister looking did not go down without a fight, and embers from it rained down upon the books and the furnishings and set them ablaze, also blowing out the windows of the Flood Mansion and setting that ablaze too. It was gutted by the fire, and the art collection in the basement did not survive that blaze. However, I mentioned it was made of stone. It ended up being a shell after the fire, and it was actually rebuilt. And it's the only mansion on Nob Hill that actually survives to modern times. It's now the Pacific Union Club, and you can go outside it. You can't go in. You don't have that kind of money. Though San Francisco is the only place to have suffered obliteration by firestorm, it's by no means the only place that was seriously damaged. Indeed, serious damage occurred all the way from southwestern Fresno County to northern Humboldt County, a distance of over 450 miles. One of the places that was severely damaged was Stanford University. The campus, I'm happy to say, was eventually mostly rebuilt in its original form, though the church did lose its rotunda, and the memorial arch was never rebuilt. But one of the amusing stories that comes from it involves a statue on the front of the zoology building, which is now Jordan Hall. The statue of Louis Agassiz fell off the front of the building and stuck itself headfirst into the concrete, where it remained oddly intact. A passing member of faculty supposedly remarked, "Agassiz was great in the abstract, but not in the concrete." Professorial dad jokes are not new. The statue was so intact that they were actually able to remove it and put it right back up on the building, where it remains to this day. There, be sure to like and subscribe for more of the fantastical stories that history is full of. There are going to be more, and they're all, every one of them, going to be completely awesome. See you then.